All right, Todd. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me here. As a way of getting started, I have 4 questions, and they're all 4 why questions that I want to ask you, and then we'll kind of dive in. But the first question is, why do you believe in TrinDocs, the product?
Well, I've heard a lot about it over the last several years, and we kind of came to the point where we either needed to try to streamline our accounts payable process internally with what we had or hire another person. And I really, didn't want to try to hire another person because the labor market's not that great out there right now. We've had a couple bad hires over the years, so didn't really want to do that. And so we just was trying to do more with what we had available, and TrinDocs seemed to be a perfect application for us to at least consider it. And the more I looked at it, it was a no-brainer. It truly did fit what we were trying to do. Vermeer's tagline is equipped to do more, so I was trying to do more with what we had, and TrinDocs was a good partner for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. TrinDocs tagline is automation as unique as you. So if you put those together, I think that bears out what we've done. So the next why question is, why do you believe in TrinDocs as a team?
Well, from what I've seen, the product sold itself, but behind the scenes, the team at TrinDocs has been very supportive. Even to this day, I just sent an email off this morning to Jennifer, and she replied back immediately. So what I found is the support side of it. It wasn't just, here you go, everything's up and running, you're on your own. And that was important to us to have a partnership. We've only been live 2 months, so it's not like we know everything about TrinDocs, what it'll do and how the process flows, but we're figuring it out with the support of, the TrinDocs team. Jennifer and everyone else has been great. So, to me, it's a perfect fit. And hopefully some other dealers, especially Vermeer dealers, will sign on and get it rolling. And I'll help them out any way I can.
We appreciate that. And don't say that one phrase too often where it sells itself. I have a family to feed, Todd. So
no, I understand that. And truly, the product is the way that it integrates with our ERP software. TrinDocs has done a great job of setting that up to, add a lot of value to dealers like us.
That's great. So let me ask you, since we kind of talked about the product selling itself, from a sales process, from a salesperson, why do you believe in me as a salesperson? What's your experience been?
Well, you're very easy to talk to, not pushy at all. In fact, I remember one of our first conversations was, you were just explaining what the product will do, how it integrates with our eBS software. And basically you're like, hey, if you're interested, get a hold of me and we'll talk more. And I like that approach because oftentimes it takes a couple of years to see the success of it. And of course, we weren't the first dealer that signed on that uses eBS software, but so we kind of followed the lead of some other dealers that figured it out behind the scenes and made sure it worked. And then I talked to you more about, hey, this is what we need it to do. Can it do this? I won't say that you were dismissive, but you just are like, well, it's your own time, and I remember it took a couple years. I think we started this conversation in 2022 when I was really busy with some leadership stuff. And during that process, you're like, well, whenever you're ready to talk about it, just let me know. And I appreciate that. There was zero pressure, and that's important to me. And I'm sure a lot of other, companies or clients that you have, it's the same way with them. Everyone's busy, so their time frame is different.
Right. The last why question I have, number 4, is why do you believe in TrinDocs for Vermeer dealers / eBS users?
Well, Vermeer dealers might be a little unique, but the way our process is we do probably 80% of our invoices come from one manufacturer. Some of the other eBS dealers have multiple manufacturers and a lot more hurdles than what we do. But just speaking from the Vermeer side of things, typically, our invoices are structured where we have a computerized generated purchase order, get the parts, then we receive the parts. TrinDocs matches up that PO number with the receiver number from the parts receipt, and literally we do not have to touch probably 65 to 70% of our invoices. Again, like I said, I was looking to hire another person, and now we're just using the technology with the help of TrinDocs to complete that. And definitely did not replace a person. So it's kind of a fine line there with technology replacing people. It wasn't that at all. We just decided that our growth level, we could use what we had currently and partner with TrinDocs so that we didn't have to hire another person in that position, and we can focus on another position or fill our needs.
I'm really glad that you talked about that. One of the questions I get from people that are looking to buy TrinDocs is that specifically, well, if TrinDocs is going to save me so much time, well, then what am I going to do with my time? So how has your team kind of handled that organizational change so far?
I had that very same discussion with two key people in our organization. And I'll start off saying first, we have 4 locations. The location that I'm in, we did the processing of accounts payable in-house. So my branch, we did it here. The lady that used to do it retired, so I took it over. So I'm very familiar with the whole process. It's a lot of data entry. It's a lot of extra time that's really unnecessary. I won't say it's mindless because it's important work. I mean, it has to be done right. But, I felt like we could use the abilities of our accounts payable staff in different ways, more of analyzing the invoices to make sure they're correct rather than just entering data into the system. But that conversation I had with a couple key people, they were concerned that we were phasing them out. And it was hard at first for them to see the big picture, but now I get it almost every day from a couple people that are like, this, why didn't we have this years ago? Because it's just so much easier. It allows them to focus their attention in different areas. We have a lot of new people to train, right? So now those key employees can spend their time training people rather than just being involved in the data entry and that side of things. So it's kind of one of those things that, you look at the overall big picture. Instead of hiring more people, we are using the talents that we have in-house differently and more effectively and efficiently.
That's awesome. Now, I know from a time perspective, one of the concerns that we often hear is I'm already drowning in my day-to-day job. I don't have time to help test out things or train in this implementation. And for you guys in particular, we did some things that we've never done before that improved TrinDocs as a product, improved eBS as a product, and ultimately helped you at Vermeer and what your team is doing. Can you talk about that and kind of the experience that you had in the integration and the implementation period?
Yeah, definitely. So what I found with talking to a couple other dealers that use eBS that also use TrinDocs is they're structured a little differently than what we are. They're typically forklift dealers. They have a lot of assets in the field that they own and maintain, and just a lot going on that's different than what we are. We're primarily industrial equipment dealer that sells Vermeer branded equipment. I mean, that's pretty much what we do. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of other manufacturers to deal with. But having said that, our process flow and who we deal with on a daily basis is different than the others. So we went in with just the core design and functionality of TrinDocs, and we had to kind of modify it for exactly what we did. And that is one of the positive sides of TrinDocs is they're more than willing to work with us individually to say, okay, well, this is what we've done for others. But depending on how you are structured, some dealerships have multiple levels of approvers in the payables process. Some have one. I mean, it just depends on how you're set up. Jennifer and the team were able to just say, okay, how do you want it set up? And we'll tell you if we can do it or we can't do it. But the other part of that is they're always accepting enhancements because each dealer, is used to doing things a little differently. Like, for instance, one of the things that we implemented is we have some invoices are confidential. They might be from our accountants. They might be from different vendors that we don't want just everyone seeing. So what Jennifer did is she put in the ability to set up an invoice as confidential. If it's confidential, only certain people can see it. So there's things like that that are easily adapted in the way the software works. We also have certain invoices need to be approved by more than one person. So they added up to 3 approvers so that it can go from the first approver to the second to the third before it's, ultimately vouchered to be paid. And that's important because the way it used to work was we'd print out the invoice. The AP clerk would look at it. She would code it with the accounting of where it needs to be billed. Then she'd take it across the hall to the, another person's desk. Then they would look at it and be like, yep, they put their initials on it, and then they take it to the next person. And there's just a lot of layers that were important to, make sure that the invoice was being seen by those that were required to see it, but then also vouchering it to pay. Now it's all electronic. It comes in, our AP clerk does the same thing. Instead of printing it, she would set up the coding in TrinDocs' site, and she would assign the approvers in the order that they needed to be seen. So the approver 1 looks at it, yep, good to go. She, accepts it, then it goes to the next one. And it's just eliminates all of the unnecessary communication. And believe me, some people like to go and talk to, their coworkers, and it's, we're not trying to get rid of that at all, but we're just trying to streamline the process from start to finish. The other nice thing is if somebody's out of the office on vacation or traveling for work or whatever, they'll see that invoice and approve it when they're 3,000 miles away. Whereas in the past, they wouldn't approve it until they got back to their desk and looked at the invoice and said, okay, this is good to go. So it's more timely, it's easier, it's more efficient. Not a single bad thing to say about the process. It just really works well. But Vermeer dealers are a little different than the others. There's 5 of us left on eBS, and I'm hopeful that all the other remaining 4 will sign on once they see how easy this is. Yeah. See, I'm just trying to feed you, Jeremy. I mean, really, I am.
Yeah, me too. That's really helpful. And I can kind of see, I appreciate you contrasting the way things were before when you were paper driven with the way they are now that you're electronic. And I understand, the increased visibility. I understand the audit trails and kind of knowing where things are at. Can you talk a little bit more about manual data entry and how information flows from TrinDocs into eBS?
Like I said earlier, if the invoice has a computer-generated purchase order number and a receiver, the user doesn't have to do anything with it. So that's current state. The way it was is we would still have to manually input the data. You'd have to put in the vendor number, you'd have to put in the purchase order number, you'd have to match up the receiver with it, and then everything flowed through. It still would take anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds for every invoice to get that done. TrinDocs does it automatically. We have it set up that if everything matches and it's within $1 variance either direction, and $1 doesn't sound like much, but we're usually within pennies. So, $1 for us works. But as long as that happens, we literally do not have to touch it. And it's important to note that, we're saving time and effort by not having an individual enter all that data manually, and probably some carpal tunnel claims too along the way. But it just streamlines that process. And then once it's done on the TrinDocs side, there's just a simple import process into eBS, and it vouchers all of those invoices for us with basically a punch of a couple keys, and they're done. And if there is any errors along the way, because we're humans and software does tend to have some glitches here and there, if there are errors, then we focus on correcting those and spend a little time on that rather than all the extra data entry stuff that you would always have anyways.
That's very helpful. And so in this conversation so far, we've talked a little bit about the sales process. We've talked a little bit about the development process, kind of the implementation. Now, can we talk a little bit about the training process? And can you walk me through your experience with that?
The training side of it, like I said earlier, is each dealer is a little unique. So I understand that there isn't going to be just from the TrinDocs side, a training document says this is the way it works, because everyone's set up a little differently. We have different status processes, I guess you could say, depending on, like, if it's a piece of equipment invoice, that goes to a different person so that we're not cluttering up somebody's inbox that really has no reason to see that invoice. First off, you have to try to identify your internal process and understand that you may need to change it a little bit after you go live. But the initial setup is important to just, in your head, identify how things flow. So then from there, Jennifer and the team will set it up that way. TrinDocs has a lot of training, like instructional videos and documentation that says this is how you set up a template and things like that. They're willing to help any way that they can. They'll hold virtual meetings and go through how it's set up to work. And if you want something changed, they're more than willing to do it. Support is unbelievable. Way better than most software partners that I've run across.
Tell me more about that. Why do you say that?
Very quick to respond or acknowledge a reply to an email. I like to email because email is the easiest way to communicate with providing details. More importantly, email allows that other person to deal with it when they can. But what I found is, like I said, I sent Jennifer an email this morning and she responded within 10 minutes and said that she would look into it. The support is wonderful, absolutely top notch. But what I would recommend is that you give support as much information as you possibly can so that they can identify the change needed, the enhancement, the issue, whatever it might be. The really nice thing about TrinDocs is the audit trail. If you look at each invoice, it has an audit trail that shows you exactly what went on with that. It'll show you if one particular user approved something that maybe they shouldn't have, or, whatever it might be, which I found is very helpful for trying to identify maybe the flow of a document that went the wrong direction or something happened along the way. Providing the document number is very helpful for the support team to be able to give you a true answer or fix a problem. Sometimes what I found is not only enhancements, but there are problems that need to be corrected. It might be just a simple script. Like, I'll give you a quick example. This morning, our import file didn't load. It had an error on, it said line number 141. So I went in there and I looked, and sure enough, it had a % sign in there. Well, eBS does not like % signs. So I simply edited the CSV file that was sent from TrinDocs, because TrinDocs allowed it, right? I mean, they don't know that eBS doesn't like that character. So I edited the CSV file and it imported fine. Well, then what I did is I sent that information to Jennifer this morning and said, hey, is there a way that TrinDocs can exclude these characters? And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. Just tell me what characters they are and we'll implement it in there. Well, I believe I was probably the first one to ask for that, but there's other eBS dealers that'll benefit from that down the road, once that implementation is made. So again, they're very helpful, quick. I won't say that they're waiting for me to call them or email them, but they're very, very responsive, I guess you could say.
No, we love you, Todd, but I assure you we're not sitting around waiting for a call. Our mandate for support is within 4 hours to have at least acknowledged, hey, there's an issue and here's the protocol to fix it, kind of a corrective action plan. But most time, like you mentioned, within 4 hours, it's not only acknowledged, but also resolved. And so 10 minutes, that's lightning fast. But 4 hours is kind of what our target is.
Yeah. Well, again, I've dealt with a lot of software companies over the years, and from what I've seen, you're doing a great job with the support side of things.
That's great. Well, we've kind of come full circle from sales process to the development, implementation, to training, to support. And you've kind of touched on lots of things along the way, but I want to ask a question just a little bit differently and just point blank ask you, what are the biggest benefits you see for TrinDocs directly for eBS users?
Well, the biggest benefit would be eliminating all that unnecessary data entry. It's part of being in business, I guess you could say, but it just frees up the individual or multiple people to maybe focus on different things, or allow you to not have to hire one more person. Or like I said, that with the one example about the flow of how a document is approved, is just so much more easier to follow in the computer. There's a ability to put notes in there so that if maybe there's a question about a charge on an invoice or something, a note can be put in there and sent back to the other approver to say, hey, yeah, this is okay to pay, the price changed or something like that. In the past, we just had to take that document and walk around the whole. We're not getting our steps in now, so that's kind of a negative. But no, we used to have to just search for the individual to ask them a question about the invoice or if it was okay to pay and that kind of stuff. And now we just set approval bucket or however you want to call it, their status, and then they look at it and approve it. The other nice thing that I did not mention is if a document is assigned to somebody to be approved, they will get an email that says you have document, 1, 2, 3, 4 ready to approve. So they can easily see that in their inbox because they're living in their email all day long. They don't have to necessarily log into TrinDocs every day to look at, what's in their area for approval. They just click on the email and approve it, yes or no, and away they go. It just allows them the ability to continue to focus on what they're working on rather than being interrupted by somebody that's standing in front of them, staring them down to say, hey, can you approve this? So there's so many benefits that personally any EBS dealer that's not using this, I think they're missing the boat. There really is a better way to do things, especially on the payable side. I will say it's not 100% perfect. Nothing is, right? There oftentimes is a requirement in the TrinDocs side of things or on the front end, what I would say, to, make sure that the invoice is coded properly, the date's right. You got to do everything on the front end in order to get it into EBS. So it doesn't eliminate some of that work, but a lot of it does.
Obviously, like you said, no thing is perfect. And we acknowledge that. We have 4 core values, and I want to ask your thoughts on how we live those out. And so I'll just tell you the 4 values are integrity, excellence, growth, and happiness. And we believe at TrinDocs, if we work with integrity and we do excellent work, then we are going to grow, and so will our clients, and we'll all be happy. So for those 4 words, can you talk about each of those and what your experience has been with TrinDocs?
Well, I'll talk about the integrity first because we briefly talked about you as a salesperson, but what I have seen with the team that I have met and talked with is they really are there to make sure that the product works with what we have or what we are using, right? And I know that you're a partner with eBS, so it's already been proven. But what I've seen is that without integrity, you guys probably wouldn't even be in business today. That is a very key core value that I think most businesses try to have integrity, but some fall short. Others do a better job. I think that your team, yourself and your team has done a wonderful job just making sure that the product works, but you're not pushing it down our throat. You're not saying you absolutely have to have this. Along with that, you guys have a lot of other add-ons that you're not pushy on. I mean, seriously. In fact, I have to circle back with you on some of those because I might want to revisit them, but it's a very important core value. I think you guys live it. Growth-wise, obviously, everyone needs to grow. They say in business, if you're not growing, you're dead. Well, that might be a little extreme, but it's realistic, right? I mean, you have to keep getting better at what you do, trying to get more market share, trying to just keep excelling and growing and adding more people. And your product offers you the ability to do that. I'm happy to give you my experience, hopefully allow for you to grow, because we're definitely going to grow because of the software. It may not be tomorrow, but it's going to give us the ability to refocus on some different areas with some key people and say, you know what, instead of just sitting here for 5 hours doing data entry, I want you to spend an hour, using TrinDocs, and then the other 4 hours, let's do something different. So it gives the individuals a chance to grow within the company as well. The happiness side of it, you got a smile on your face. So as long as, you got that going at the end of the day, I think that it says a lot right there that you work for a good company. you have a great product. The people that are around you, whether it's your clients or your coworkers, obviously give you happiness. It's one of those things that everyone, you may not love your job, but if you're happy doing what you're doing, you go home at the end of the day and you focus on your family or whatever else you love to do. And it just makes the day go by a lot better. You can talk about happiness all day long, but typically it's not just about a smile on the face. It's about feeling good about what you do and definitely who you work for. Neither you or I own the business. So it's kind of one of those things that we're doing the best we can with what we have.
I know at the, St. Louis user convention, you were talking to lots of people. I didn't ask you to talk to them, but you did it. Since that time, you've joined me on demos with other eBS, other Vermeer dealers. And so I know you're a good guy and I appreciate you doing that, but why are you doing that? What's prompted you just to give us your time and your testimonials the way you have?
I've been here for going on 24 years now. I've seen over the years that collectively you're better off with more numbers. From the Vermeer side of things, we're down to 5 dealers that are on eBS. I want to keep those 5 dealers together. I want to keep them working together as a team to keep the success of what we have going. Oftentimes, you need somebody to show you the way, so to speak. In St. Louis, as you mentioned, I gave a demo to one of the Vermeer dealers that I believe is going live with you shortly. But when you believe in a product and you believe in the people, you're more than willing to try to advance that product to the next level. But to me, it's all about, working together as a team. Whether you're a Vermeer dealer or a forklift dealer or whoever you are, as long as we're using the same software, I'm more than willing to give anyone a demo on how it works because I believe in it. I've seen it work. The ability that you can provide somebody else the ability to grow within the organization and focus on different things and use their talents differently, I think is very, very important. Our mission statement is we exist to impact your success. And that's not just our people, our customers, our partners like you, Jeremy, but it's everyone we come into contact with. That's what we try to do. And if you're able to implement a solution such as TrinDocs that's going to make somebody's life easier and better on a daily basis, it's a no-brainer. So I'm glad to talk to anybody about it as long as they're an eBS user. I'm not going to speak for some other ERPs that you have connections with. But so yeah, that's why I was happy to say something in St. Louis about it. I've just seen that obviously the integrity is there from you and your team, and you're willing to put the effort in as well. Like I said, we first talked about this probably going on 3 years ago now. I think it was. It's all good. I'm very happy to help any way I can. I'm not on the payroll, so I'm not getting anything out of it as far as that goes. But I truly do believe that your ability to grow as a team, whether it's in the same dealership or not, is important. You need to stick together. You need to work together. The world's a happier place when you can work together and get along.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I haven't really encountered too many eBS users that have said, oh no, TrinDocs is not right for us. It's more that TrinDocs is what we need. We know it, but we've got 5,000 irons in the fire. We just have to prioritize things. So for somebody like that, they're looking at ROI and what's the ROI on this project versus this one? And how does TrinDocs stack up in that? So how would you answer someone who told you, yeah, we believe TrinDocs is a great product. We know it works with eBS. There's lots of people using it, but we've got to prioritize and all these other things. How do you help with that kind of ROI mindset?
Yeah, good question. We did the same thing. Looking back at it now, I probably wish that we would have done it sooner. But, it's just one of those things that everyone's busy. They have certain projects in their budget for a period of time. It boils down to just understanding what it can do, whether it's TrinDocs, whether it's Avalara, whether it's, some e-commerce program, whatever it is, you need to understand the pluses and minuses and, how, when you talk ROI, it's sometimes it's hard to put a number on that, because you might be talking about people, and all of a sudden finding key people is very difficult. But aside from that, the amount of money that it costs to retain them and train them, and when you look at the big picture like that, a solution like TrinDocs can help, at least for our company. And again, we're small. There's a lot of other much bigger dealers than us, but I figured it's going to save us a person. And I'm probably a little conservative on that. It probably would be more like 2 people, because the amount of growth that we've seen over the last 5 years, we've taxed our employees probably more than they care to be worked on, certain things. Because you mentioned happiness. Well, yeah, they come in and they do their job, but are they happy doing it? So if we can take and make their job easier and still allow them the growth opportunities that they want, then that's important to us. So we look at that as ROI as well. It's how do we, make life easier for the people that we employ so that we can keep them 20 plus years. To replace a person is not easy. To hire a person is not easy. So you got to retain what you have first and figure out the way to move forward and grow.
That's very important to us as well. We're not looking for flash in the pan, 6-month, 1-year relationships. We're looking for decades-long relationships. And so we try to think long-term and not, immediate short-term. So you just said that you expect to save 1 to 2 people, avoiding hiring. What kind of a volume do you see currently for your invoices? How many invoices a month do you process, or a year?
I think currently in TrinDocs, in 2 months, we're at like 2,500 documents, something like that. So I'm thinking in a year's time, we're anywhere from 16 to 18,000 invoices, which isn't a lot, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But if you think about every one of those in the past required somebody to enter that manually into the software.
Right.
It's just a lot of keystrokes. It's important work. It has to be done. But it didn't have to be done in the way that we were doing it. That's constantly things that we look at, trying to find a better way, trying to use technology, whether it's TrinDocs or an application for something on a mobile device or whatever it might be. You're always trying to do more with less. And part of it's just labor driven. It's the market. It is what it is. But a lot of it is the quality of the employment. What is that person doing all day long? Do they like to do that? We've tried to develop our employees in different ways, try to give them opportunities for growth within the organization. If you come in at data entry and you sit there all day long and that's all you do, you're probably not going to stick around. That's facts. You always have to be thinking about how you develop them and move them to the next step. So with TrinDocs, we've eliminated that need to sit somebody behind a PC and a keyboard and just push the 10 key all day long. That's not something we want to do. I've done it for years and I don't want to do it anymore either. So I don't blame individuals that don't like what they're doing. So we're trying to be cognizant of that and developing our employees to be of more value to our organization.
That's great. So with less than 20,000 invoices a year, your ROI for TrinDocs is the avoidance of 1 to 2 people.
Exactly.
That's fantastic, Todd.
Now, I don't raise the price on me. I mean, I don't expect to see that, but I think that the biggest takeaway would be to understand what the product can do for you. Even if it doesn't replace a new hire or a person, it might make that individual's job more enjoyable. It doesn't matter the savings. It might be the fact that, hey, you just put a smile on this person's face that normally just sits in their little cubicle and just punches numbers all day. Well, now they may be more apt to stay with your organization long term rather than be looking for a job on their lunch hour,
Exactly. Yep.
And that's reality. You're going to have that anyways. It's hard to find good people and you need to do what it takes to keep them. And this product, to me, their job duties are different than what they would have been for us 3 months ago.
Right. That's since you mentioned it, I'll briefly touch on it. Pricing. You said, don't change the price on me. Well, TrinDocs doesn't charge per document. So as you grow, you don't have to worry about variable pricing. It's already paid, it's fixed. And also, TrinDocs doesn't retroactively do price increases. So your TrinDocs that you already own, all your licensing, will never change. If there are price increases, they will be announced in advance and only applicable to new license purchases. So you don't have to worry about that.
One of your core values is integrity. Well, I mean, you just said it. That truly is what you told me from day one, and you're still telling me that today. So that's where, to me, the integrity side of it, you have an excellent product. Early on, I said the product sells itself, but the people also sell it. It's you and your team that sell a great product. Every EBS dealer, once they figure out exactly what it can do for them, I said it in St. Louis, it's a no-brainer. It really absolutely is. I don't know why it took us so long to jump on board, but I think it's just a lack of understanding of what it can do. In the past, we only had certain individuals in our organization that actually could see invoices. They could only see them once they were in the computer ready to be paid, right? Once they were vouchered in EBS, then they could see them. Well, we have a lot of parts individuals that need to see the invoice in order to receive the parts at the correct price. So what we were seeing before we went with TrinDocs is they did not have the ability to see the invoice, so they would just receive the price or the part, and the price was wrong. So then they would get an email from the accounts payable clerk, and she'd say, this receiver for this part or this invoice doesn't match. So you need to unreceive the part, change the price, and then re-receive it. Well, that creates a lot of accounting issues, potentially, but a waste of time. So now what we have with TrinDocs is once the invoice is in TrinDocs, anyone in the company can see that invoice and see the amount that we were charged for it. They can change their purchase order to match, and then they receive the parts, and it eliminates wasted time. Visiting our location, since we've gone live with TrinDocs, I ask specific questions of people. How do you like TrinDocs? And they look at me and they say, I don't know how we even got by without it. Seriously. And I love to hear that because it adds value to their job and what they're doing for us. It streamlines the whole process and it eliminates errors. So I just wanted to get that in there because I know that you're always looking for success stories, and truly that is a big one for what I consider our viewers. They don't approve documents. They just have the ability to view them. And they did have the ability in EBS to view it, but it was after it was vouchered. Now they can view it before and effectively change the pricing and make sure everything matches before they receive the parts.
And those viewer licenses are free.
Yep.
They're totally free. No one pays any for that.
Yep. Nope. Keep it that way. That works out well.
Yeah. Well, Todd, this has been fantastic. I really genuinely do appreciate your time and your help. And I've asked you a lot of questions and you've been very gracious to answer them. Is there anything else that you thought, well, man, Jeremy, you should have asked me about this?
We appreciate each other's, understanding of TrinDocs, and you understand EBS, and you want to make a product that works, integrates well with what we're doing on a daily basis. The only thing I would say is just keep an open mind to enhancements. I know I've sent Jennifer some, and she's like, that's a very good idea. I'm going to send it off to the developers. But I think a lot of software companies just feel like they know what the dealer needs or what the end user needs. And you guys are very open to say, hey, tell us what you want, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate that request. That adds a lot of value that you don't get from a lot of software companies. And I don't know if it's because of your structure or how, maybe you don't have thousands of people that, are just there, trying to get their work done for the day. I think it's more of a intimate relationship in the sense that you truly care about us and we truly want a product that works. You have an open mind and open ears for that. So keep that up. Really, I mean, that's awesome. A big deal to us.
It is to us too. And you know that because of the development we did together, but we really do ask and listen. to what our users are telling us. And then as best as we can, we try to implement those so that our solutions are never stale or stagnant, but growing as needed, for you. Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us again, talking about how TrinDocs adds value to Vermeer dealers and also in larger scale to eBS users. And we really appreciate you as a client, appreciate all that you've done, appreciate your offer to speak with others. So if you don't mind, can you share your email, your contact information, and we'll provide that on the screen here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My email address, if anyone wants to hear more about TrinDocs or planning how to set it up or consider it, give me a shout on email at twitzke@vermeerwisconsin.com. No spaces, spell it out. I know it's a long email, but it is what it is. So otherwise, reach out to me directly. You can go to our website, vermeerwisconsin.com, and find my information there.
So mine is jprichard@TrinDocs.com. If you'd like to reach out to either one of us, please do. Make sure you look for the next episode coming up. And we look forward to growing and continuing to serve the eBS community and Vermeer dealership community. So Todd, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. 3, 2, 1. All right, Todd. Well, thanks again for having us with, there's you a blooper, Ina. You were asking about bloopers. There's one.